We are now officially recording. I'm going to call us to order here at 7:03. I did hear from a couple people who couldn't. Alan was traveling, Brock was traveling. What else did I hear from? I'm not sure. So others will dribble in, but it's been a while, everybody. Hi.
Hello.
Nice to see everyone. We've got a bunch of us on Zoom. So on Zoom, I see we've got Laura, Kirsten, Nancy Gary, Meg, and Sue Schweitzer. And in the room here, we've got John Matz, Dan Mulhern, myself, and why do I always want to call you your sister? Your sister,
Katie.
I know. Why do I always do that? I don't know either, but anyway, Kate. All right. Can you guys hear us in Zoom land?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thumbs up. We are going to start with. All right. Yes, we have a quorum, so we can. The minutes. Do I have a motion to approve? Dan,
Yep.
second.
Katie?
Okay, Katie. All in favor? Any comments?
Nope.
Okay, unanimous? Okay.
Yes.
All good. Thank you. Because, by the way, minutes can be pretty boring. Sue, I had Sarah down here for giving us an update. I don't see Sue. I see her on the iPad, but I don't see her screen. Just to give us a quick POCD update, but can you hear us, Sue? Are you there? Maybe not. Okay. So
She's on mute though. She was on mute.
Oh, so can you unmute? Let me see if I can ask you to unmute. Just asked you to unmute. Let's see if that works. Sue? All right, well, the plan of conservation and development, you all know about it. Sarah came and spoke to us at our last meeting. Sort of the last step in the approval process. Again, it's a 10-year map, if you will. And the last step was to go to the town council. The town council had a lot of changes that they recommended. It did finally get through the final approval process through the Planning and Zoning Commission. It is not final in that there were definitely some edits and some changes and things like that, just small minor changes that needed to happen. So according to Sarah, it should be live and good to go probably in about 3 or 4 weeks. Again, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding. It is not a mandate. It doesn't, in the document, it should not say that we're going to do something. It just suggests and recommends. So that was just a quick update, just because I know it got a lot of press towards the end of the process. And I just wanted to make sure you were all aware. And Sue, if you hear me and I've said anything incorrect or anything that you want to add, jump in. Nancy, can you give us an update on October for Design? Are you in the thick of it?
We actually just finished it.
Oh,
I think
okay.
in all honesty, October for Design has not really turned into the community effort that we anticipated. The Glass House gave us some events, Grace Farms gave us some events, but I think it's still in a place where people are sort of doing their own thing. And we're going to have to kind of look at whether it makes sense to continue to do it moving forward. I just don't know. I think maybe there was too much in October. Like some of our programs suffered from just low attendance. We had a couple things. I heard that the concert at Grace Farms was amazing.
Last night.
Yes.
It
And
was amazing.
Yeah.
And I heard that the Glass House concert at the Fish Church was amazing. We had a great tour of Sacred Spaces on Sunday, which was 3 churches on a bus. So there was definitely highlights that really work. But I just don't know if there's the sort of the community interest in having this move forward.
Interesting. Do you think some of that is because, I mean, I can only speak for myself. I've lived in the area now for 60 years. And I've been to like the Statue of Liberty once, I think on a third grade field trip. I mean, do you think some of it is just because we all are here and we just take it for granted that it's always here and we can always see these things, whereas it's not necessarily an attraction? I know what you're saying is something that I've heard for years from the Summer Theater of New Canaan. They've said the same thing, that they feel that more attendees to the Summer Theater are people from out of town and not people in town. So I'm wondering if there's some of that.
I think it's a little bit of that. I think it's a little bit of, you know, the idea was to make this sort of like Palm Springs Modernism East, where you would come and maybe spend 4 or 5 days in New Canaan and go to programs and offerings by different organizations all around sort of a same theme. I'm
Right.
not sure we have a strong enough theme. I'm not sure, you know, we don't really have hotels except for the Roger Sherman. You know, I don't
Right.
know. I just don't know that we're equipped really to do this in the way that we had originally dreamed. That said, you know, we continue to have all year long real interest in our architecture and design programming. You know, the Glass House, I don't want to speak for Kirsten, but you know, the work that they do with the library, those programs are incredibly well attended. So, you know, I think that there's interest. I just don't know if, you know, the idea of this was supposed to be the sum of the parts were greater than the whole, or no, the whole was greater than the sum of the parts.
Right.
I said that wrong, but I'm just not sure that we're there.
That's very interesting, but I think you're right. I think there's a lot of interest year round, maybe not just in this 2-3 week period.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, from the museum's perspective, next year we have our Modern House Day Tour. We have an incredible exhibit that's traveling to New Canaan from out of town. And I think that we may just do those two things.
Right. Kirsten, you got anything to
You know,
add?
yeah, I mean, we certainly tried to, although we try to have programming every month that we're open, April through to December, you know, we tried to have a couple of big events in October specifically, so to enrich October for design. I want, you know, I would be saddened to set it aside. You know, I feel like maybe Nancy, you and I, maybe we could talk with, you know, your team and my team and see what we could, I mean, next year, if you have the house tours, obviously that is a highly attended event. We will still try to have, you know, some good events as well that are focused in October. But I guess we could think of who else what other organizations are modernism architecture focused that could have events in that month, you know, within New Canaan, we are the two organizations that are very architecture focused and Grace Farms. And so but maybe we could cast a wider net to get Docomomo or some, you know, like sort of bigger modernism groups to have at least one event nearby. I don't know.
Well, and also what is it? The New York AIA does a lot around October.
Right.
Including some stuff that thematically was duplicative of stuff that we've done in the past. So there's opportunities. I think maybe the idea should be to focus on like building a 4-day incredible program where there's a Glass House event, a Historical Society event, a Grace Farms event, and maybe something else, whether it's a chamber music event or whatever, so that really we could start to draw the out-of-town people that are going to come and stay and experience the weekend.
I agree, Nancy. We had a lot of people come into town for our event last night.
Yeah, I heard it was
A little
amazing.
freaky.
Yeah.
But including from overseas. But we felt like it was like a wedding weekend where they were getting here Thursday and staying till Monday, and we actually didn't have enough locally to fill.
Interesting.
Even though we had the Glass House on Sunday and we had Nancy's tour, or I forget which day was which, but
Yep.
there was plenty of things, but it wasn't like a full day's worth.
Okay.
So then they went into the city to Carnegie Hall, and it was like, I like the idea of a concentrated 4-day.
Do you
People could pick 2 days or 4.
I mean, the London Philharmonic, was that just a one time?
We usually do have people coming in
Okay.
for our benefit either
So
way.
it sounds to me, from what I'm hearing between the three of you, who were the key contributors to this, is that Nancy, you've been leading the charge on this, and thank you for that. But it sounds to me like it needs to now be more of a collaboration and condensed so that, like you said, if people come, they can take advantage of 3 or 4 days of sort of chock or block
Right, and
programs.
it might be a great time to experiment with the shuttle or the
Yeah, the
trolley
trolley.
concept.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Nancy's right
I'm-
that the housing issue is real,
Really.
the
The
coordination.
the hotel issue, yeah.
And we do use hotel partners and we do blocks for talent and guests all the time, but there's no perfect solution.
Interesting.
And also, most of the ones that are willing to partner, you need a car.
Right.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
Fairfield County lacks.
Yeah.
It's almost like it would need to be, and Nancy, you know how challenging it is to run the house tour with the busing all day long. It's almost like it needs to be a few days of that,
Right.
where there's
Right.
an itinerary and, anyway,
Yeah.
we can brainstorm offline, but.
Well, yeah, I think,
I think it might be worth it, like sometime relatively soon, if we want to try and pull something great off for next year, to have at least the 3 of us sit down and have a better conversation about how to coordinate. You know, we have an exhibit coming and we have our house tour, so we already have those dates. And if we could build something, you know, there's a Saturday night, there's a Sunday, you know, there's a lot of time around that nothing's going on. That would be really wonderful to be able to collaborate.
all right, I will take on the challenge of getting us all in the same place at the same time over the next couple of weeks. I'll try to set something up where we can sit down and really talk about this and think about it and start putting something together. Okay,
I'd love to bring our creative director into the conversation either then or at the next call after that, because
okay,
they're putting things on the calendar for 25.
okay. All right. Well, thank you, Nancy, because as I said, you've been sort of the leader of that. It's something that I think, as far as TDAC goes, it's something we're very proud of, but I think I echo what Kirsten and others were saying, is that it would be, we don't want it to go away altogether, but we're learning as we go. And I think some of the issues, Palm Springs, you know, you've probably got hotels everywhere, right? But we don't have that access and other things. So I will get us all
Well, and
together.
I think, Tucker, I think the other thing about Palm Springs, it not only has the hotels, it has the bars and restaurants, it has, you know, it has a whole neighborhood of
Yeah.
businesses that really want to support it. And we have not had that.
We haven't been able to crack that code. I know. Right.
I'll also try to crack open the relationship again with Lakota Oaks, which is right over the border in West Norwalk. It was originally a corporate conference center during the week, and they had approached Tucker and I years ago because they're empty on the weekends. And I think they've had change of ownership and management, and we've sort of lost track of that. But, you know, albeit you can't walk, but it, you know, would be a nice opportunity. So
Well,
I'm
we-
actually, you know, I've sent emails over there, but I'll commit to try to stop in and see if I can get the name of their person. So, because that would be ideal to have that place. It's a beautiful set.
Monastery.
It
Yeah.
really is pretty. So I can connect you, Laura, with Sarah Scandifio from our team, who you already know, I think, because she worked on the chamber event. She's been working with them for years. And there has been a little dip in change, but I think it's definitely worth going back. I think post-COVID, my kids took swim lessons there. Something went really wrong, like it was not upkept. But now
Right.
I think, having driven past a few times, I think it may be back, and I think it's worth revisiting, because I always thought that doing some type of a retreat
Yeah.
for Grace Arms, but in this case for everybody, like where they stay there, but then there's a
Yeah.
set schedule with trolleys to come to these experiences, and
Yeah.
then there's a place to go back to. That would be nice. And plus, there are others, sort of other hotels close by, so that could be like the hub, and
Right.
then you layer on.
They were working towards that before COVID. I mean, they had brought in a 5-star chef.
Yeah.
They had invited us to tasting dinners. I mean, they'd redone all the rooms. And then I think COVID happened and things,
Check the website
yeah.
now.
So, I know that at one point there was a proposal that they were gonna turn it into a school, but
Yeah.
then the neighbors rejected that. So it's back. And then at one point they had a Fortune 500 company was like their anchor. It was a corporate training center on the third floor. So anyway, I think that's a good point, Laura, though, if we can bring them into the loop so that we have some other options. And they've got spaces that you could host like welcome events or things like that in
It's
this, in the
beautiful,
space.
especially if we had a weekend like this one, it would be
I know,
spectacular.
I know. Everything's been beautiful this weekend or these last few weekends. All right. Well, again, Nancy, thank you and your team, which is you and Whitney and maybe one or two other people there. So well done. And I know you guys are going gangbusters up there. Things are happening every day at the museum. So good going there.
Well, we're happy to do it. It'd be great. It would be great to continue to build on it. That's, I guess, my issue.
Right. I hear you. Okay. Caffeine and Carburetors, donation of funds from events. So, I know we just had Caffeine and Carburetors this past Sunday at Waveney. This agenda item really focuses more on the Caffeine and Carburetors event that happens in the downtown. So Caffeine and Carburetors, you all know what it is. It's been sort of ratcheted back over the years to be now 2 shows. It started at one point, I think it was almost 5, but it's now 2 shows, one in the downtown in the spring, one in the fall at Waveney. After a lot of, gosh, I don't even know how to describe it, but just a lot of discussions over and over and over, we finally got them to the point where we asked them to register vehicles for a number of reasons, show cars, and then there was a registration fee, a suggested registration fee accompanying that. The good news is that for the downtown event that happened in the spring, they raised, I think it was $16,000 or $17,000 just in terms of people registering to show their cars. I do know the early numbers from this past weekend at Waveney were, I think, and that was going to the Waveney Park Conservancy, was $25,000, which these are significant funds for these organizations. So the problem with the downtown show was that we were trying to figure out, so the Waveney Park Conservancy one, it's easy, right? They raise the money, it's in Waveney, it goes to Waveney Park Conservancy. The downtown show, this money was raised for sort of, we called it our local first fund. But then the question was, well, where does that money really get spent? And my position always was that the merchants and the businesses in the downtown really endured, and I use the word endured in its true sense, Caffeine and Carburetors. Yes, it's a Sunday morning. Most of the stores are not open on a Sunday morning. It brings a ton of people to town. Hopefully those people will come back, will walk by our store windows and say, oh my God, look at that beautiful painting or that dress or whatever, I'm coming back. But what we heard over and over and over again was that it was really a problem, or there were challenges around, for the downtown event, I'm saying, the churches. Sunday morning is a very big day for the churches. St. A's was saying, Congregational Church, all were saying the same thing, that it was really hurting them just from people being able to get to church. The long and short of it is, after a lot of work internally, we have now started the conversation about where these funds will go. And as I say, I've been pushing for it to be more of a local business focus. I think Doug Zimbach, who's the creator of this and the brainchild and does an amazing job, I think he had visions of conquering world peace with some of this money. And but what we've recently, the last discussion we had, which I think is kind of fun, we're still sort of tinkering with it, but we're trying to connect the car aspect of it with the need part that Doug is trying to, he wants to fulfill a need. And I'm over here saying cheerleading for the businesses, and that perhaps we could create a fund, and our Human Services Department has confirmed that this is an issue. Perhaps we could create a fund for part of it, not all of it, but a fund for employees of businesses who, quite honestly, might not have reliable transportation. I mean, to a lot of the restaurants, an unplanned car issue that you didn't budget for, some people, okay, so it's another $500 and you get it fixed and you move on. Other people, that could be a deal breaker from getting to work, actually getting to work. So that was one idea we had, was potentially helping and then I started getting that whole need feeling thing going on. And I said, I know, I just would love to think that there are families in town, God forbid, if anybody needed just a safe way to transport kids to school and that kind of thing. So we're working through that. I know I had mentioned that the last meeting, that we're having these brainstorming sessions. I think we're moving forward in the right direction, but I've been there sort of pounding the pavement and saying that I really want to see it stay in the downtown versus hurricane relief or things like that, because I feel like that's where it's taking place, just like with Waveney Park Conservancy. I think that's a perfect place for the funds to go. So if anybody,
Tucker?
yes,
So I had a conversation with Lauren, and what I brought forward as an idea, and that's very easy and clean to execute. Certainly not the whole 16,000, but we have that electronic gift certificate, and they have a BOGO program. So
Right.
if I were to give you $100 gift, and during this BOGO period, part of that money would be put in a fund with Yifty, who is the company that we use for this gift certificate fund. And so let's say we set that caffeine and carburetors will up your money by 20% or 50% or 10%. So my $100 gift to you would become $125, and we could launch it around the holiday season. And it just, there's 40 or 50 businesses who have signed up for the that accept the gift certificate. So it would really keep more money in town and incentivize more people to buy that as a gift, to keep the money circulating in town. So
and she was receptive.
she thought it was interesting. She's going to talk to Doug. And the last time I checked with her, she just, I think, was so busy with the mental health survey or whatever, she just hasn't been able to reach out to him. And then, he was so crazy getting ready. But at some point we should circle back. I'd like to get his thoughts on that. As I said, it doesn't have to be all of it, but just in
Right.
terms of optics, it keeps it downtown and incentivizes more people to give local gift certificates.
And the reason that the Community Foundation is even in the loop here is because they set up the, when people register their cars to show at Caffeine and Carburetors, it's all done through a program through the Community Foundation. So they're holding those funds.
Okay.
So that's why, and I mean, what better organization to utilize? Right, Laura, I'd forgotten that you had also suggested that. I think that's a great idea. So it doesn't all have to be, 100% of the funds going one thing or another, but just want to make sure it supports the downtown, the local merchants.
Yep.
We'll continue those conversations, but I mean, the good news is that, it's a great event. I'm jumping ahead a little bit in that the show this past Sunday at Waveney was amazing, but also came with all the headaches that it normally comes with, but this time seemed to be a little bit more intense, I think, because the weather was so beautiful. But apparently at about 8:45, the park was full and they had to shut the park down, and it was gridlock. South Avenue, 106, Talmadge Hill. And there were some serious, from the police, serious safety concerns. They said we could not have gotten a fire truck down to, or an ambulance. I mean, it was literally gridlock. So this is one of those things where we're all sitting here working towards having these events.
Trying to
We want
get
to have,
people to show up.
we
but
want to
not
have
too
people
many.
come, and now everybody's there. We're like, oh, darn, it's almost too many people. So I'm having a subsequent meeting with them on Thursday. But a great event, and brings a lot of people to town, and anybody with a marketing sense surely can understand the value of all of the pictures. Here I am in New Canaan, Connecticut, and that kind of thing. So any other ideas on that? Send them my way.
Are we still entertaining the banner idea? I think.
Yeah, that's what
I know. I
That's
mean,
on my list, and I just listened to several organizations trying to get the word out and
Right.
get people involved. I think it would not only, and maybe, Caffeine and Carburetors is the kind of like the one that we really kick it off with.
yeah,
To premiere
right.
this great vehicle to communicate the events of the town or something,
Mhm.
and let them be kind of own, they were the one who kicked it off.
Yeah.
But I think, just being a resident and also now not being a resident, to come into town and to be able to know what is going on. I think so often people's lives are busy. They have their own kids' calendars, and they
kidding.
have a lot going on. But sometimes when you're walking through town and you see something or you see it repetitively 3 times, you're
Yeah.
like, wait a minute, oh my gosh, I forgot all about that event. That is, and this town has a lot of key events that are dated by months and periods. And I really would love to still get our arms around, come up with some mock ideas and some potential events and present really what this could do to really communicate to the community
Right.
and people coming into our town shopping, but also our local residents of what's available and what's going on.
So I would say yes, yes, and yes. And now's the time to really start putting pen to paper on that. I
Yep.
mean, because we've got the funds sitting there and we have yet to spend a penny, but I mean, do you think, Katie, is that something that you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, especially, I know my friends are clueless with like events that go on.
Interesting.
So like, I don't even know if they knew about like the caffeine incorporated, like just basic
Right.
Yeah.
things. So I definitely think there's an awareness
So the visual,
opportunity.
okay.
I'm happy to work with you on it.
Yeah, and so I'd
Get some
love to
pricing?
work and even just for this small group is come up with some sample ideas
Mhm.
of what those banners would look like and maybe some sample events that have already occurred in our town and
Mhm.
are kind of returning events and kind of show what it could look like if it was on, and I was thinking on the way in today, is there a way to almost do a soft campaign for somebody who wants to do a soft
Right.
campaign? And then something who wants to do a full-blown campaign that's a takeover.
Right.
So is it like, just thinking from each of our seats here, like, how would you vie for that premier space?
Yeah, that's
So
true.
how do I compete with Nancy and Kirsten and whoever else for that?
Yeah, and I think that's where we have to come up with, how many is it? And is it too confusing? It's an exciting idea, but is it too confusing to have too many messages? The times that I've seen it, it's usually a message or two that are repetitive throughout that town, and all of a sudden, it just connects with you. It has the date, it has the time, it has limited information, but enough to know that day I have to be available.
Was it only town sponsored
Oh,
themes or
it doesn't have to be
campaigns, or-
town, and I think that's where there may be opportunity to monetize it, to help
Mhm.
underwrite it,
Wondering.
to say, if it is I'll call it a campaign for Grace Farms,
Awareness.
it may be $1,000 for you to get that prime week
Mhm.
or that prime period. And I came here thinking of, is it a 2-week campaign? Is it a monthly campaign, or is it a quarterly campaign? And how do we do that? And I think that's where we're going to have to get others to brainstorm with us as to what feels right.
Right. We currently, with the lamppost.
Yep.
I basically take the reservations there for 2-week periods. And we've come to learn, I think I've said this before, that the lampposts are very valuable real estate.
Yes, they are.
And we just recently had the second year with the Pink Project, and they raised,
The
Laura, I don't know if we got a
lights and
final number,
very,
but
very
Pink
cute.
lights. Right now, obviously, the scarecrows are up, which is in our, 5th, 6th, 7th year, whatever, which is a lot of fun. And I remember one of the first years that I took over at the chamber, and we did the stroll banners.
Yep.
And they were great. And so that's the point to that, is in terms of the expense, the hardware, we own all of the hardware because we do the veterans banners and all of that. It's just the actual, and I think like Stanford always does one. Most
Stanford
towns do.
Fairfield's the one I always go and see. I
Yeah.
see, and it's like a major statement when you're driving down
Right.
the Post Road in
To see them all there.
Fairfield. And it's just like, it's a major message. And it's just a great way to communicate to your residents and also people who are in town from visiting.
So that's, right along the same lines as all of the funds from this caffeine and carburetors. So I think if we could put something together, a proposal.
Right. And maybe it's not, it can't be a full blown thing, but it could be a start of what
Right.
we end up creating even to
Right.
be much larger. Maybe we
Right.
just go out with 4 times a year, we go after trying to market, these are the 4 signs that we have, and let's do it.
Right.
And the other one that I came prepared to talk about and try to see if we can launch it is, I think Jack mentioned at one of the meetings, is a visitor center.
Yeah.
Now, it's a visitor center, but I would like to get more of a community board or some kind of digital update where people locally could go to see what's going on. And it almost becomes a destination to know what's happening in our town. We really don't have that. First, I thought visitor center, I don't want the typical with all the flyers and all that
Right.
kind of stuff. But how do we do some kind of digital board where people can literally check on what's going on this weekend?
Yeah. I mean, we have that, the fence over at the train station is kind of where everybody vies for space, but
Right.
it's not,
I'm still vying to use the Playhouse.
Hmm.
And I was just there before I came in tonight
Mhm.
with a list of who's now running it this week and who can I talk to?
Jess,
But really to really just, originally the proposal of what they were doing was, it was to be about the community. And I think if we came to them and said, and I think putting together some kind of example of
Mhm.
what we vision this digital board being,
Mhm.
they may have an interest or they may say absolutely not. But I looked around, there's plenty of space
Yeah,
there.
there is.
And they want people to walk in and familiarize themselves.
I think to
it.
Katie's point, I mean, those of us that are sort of in it and kind of know what's going on, but if you say that there's real disconnect,
Literally.
yeah,
I'm telling you right
That's it.
now.
really interesting.
No
I
one
think it's for
knows.
people whose kids are, I'm just.
Yeah, no, no,
I'm
I'm,
put words in your mouth. I
yeah.
think it's for people whose kids are like 0 to 4.
Yep.
Yeah, before you're into the school
But I think we'd
system.
still
I
be
remember,
very
like, I went to the
interested.
Lobster Fest, I just wandered,
Yeah.
but I didn't have anything to do that day. Now I have too many things to do.
Yeah.
But it's a short window.
Right. But that's the foundation from which
Mhm.
then you get
Exactly.
it and Lobster Fest happens
Right.
every year in September and Stroll's
Right.
always the first weekend in December kind of thing.
Like I have friends, yeah, I just would think they would be very interested in these events and just don't know
Know about
where
them.
to find what's going on for the weekend or during the
Great.
week. Yeah.
All right, well,
So the
let's
two
go.
that I really
When
want
do
to.
we need to decide?
well, I mean, there's no rush. However, we are going to have another meeting with them to sort of make not some preliminary decisions, but to start getting some real ideas put forward so that we can start moving things ahead. So, I mean, I could certainly relay the message that we're working on these kinds of ideas. And we've got, I mean, I think the YIFT, is another nice idea. So, and if these events, seems to me, as far as Caffeine and Carburetors goes, that the downtown show is almost easier to run because there's more places for people to enter and exit and that kind of thing. So you don't get that gridlock like we had this past weekend. But so that would be, a sustainable source of funds going forward. And Doug could feel really good about supporting something like that.
Right, and I think the banner program or event, whatever we want to call it, is an opportunity to do something that people will say, wow, that's new.
Right,
And then they're like, well, when did that happen?
right,
And now I've seen 2 of those banners for 2 different events. That's pretty cool.
right.
So it's part of showing that we're moving and creating ideas and things that are making the town more vibrant and keeping them informed.
Well, I know I drive through Pound Ridge almost on
That's-
a weekly basis, and they changed that one across the road,
Yep.
like almost every 2 weeks. There's always some new announcement of something happening up there. And it's really effective. I mean, because obviously don't live in the community, but when I drive there, I read it,
know
I
what's
look
going
at
on.
it, and I know what's going on. And I've gone back to a couple events because of it.
And not to say that the train station still isn't a viable
Yep.
opportunity for us to use that for a little bit bigger than what we're currently using
Yeah.
it for.
I mean, I've always said with the train station, I hope most people as they're driving by aren't looking at and reading the signs. I'm hoping that when they're just at the stoplight and they're looking at
A
it.
long stoplight.
It's a long
Really
stoplight, but
beautiful.
I have coached people in the past who put together posters there, sometimes it's paragraphs. And I'm like, do you understand that people are like looking at this at a glance? It's got to be like who, what, when, where, basically.
Right.
That's it, because you got to make sure people can see it. All right, well, if
Right.
you guys can start really putting something together, a proposal together of what you think.
And I would love you to think about ideas of
Samples.
sample and like, please, I'd love to use you as an example of what you're, and any committee member of your organization. So we can use that as a springboard to show what it could be.
Right.
And it could be just some raw data and let us create it, and, goes further. And the other is your idea of like, how do you vie for period, the big week?
Yeah.
And recommendations or ideas that you think are fair, equitable, and appropriate.
And
That we can
just one
build
other
that
thing, I
into
might
it.
have said this before, but we think a lot about signage at Grace Farms. Oh, I grew up in a town called Westfield, New Jersey, where I think
Yep.
the banners went a little bit bad, to be honest, in terms of the design, because they're very bold, so.
I get it.
And then if you look at both Newport and Narragansett, Rhode Island, one does it really well, one does it really poorly. So we
Yeah.
just would want to be really
Yeah.
careful about when we're, it's a collaborative design between the person who's paying for it and the town,
Yeah,
and like who oversees,
Yeah.
make sure it's consistent.
Yeah,
the
one of the
design
things that
aspect
I thought about, because I am I'm not marketing, but
Mhm.
having a consistent hand
Yeah.
Yes.
in what they look like.
Yeah,
It is
it's like our town
representation,
branding,
it is our
really.
town,
Yeah.
it is our town brand. And it will be a font, it may be their font for
Right.
their brand name, but really we are going
What
to
are the
control
parameters? How many
the
colors will we
overall
allow?
aesthetic of it.
Yep.
Because it is our town.
You're right.
And I've seen that when people are able to do whatever the heck they want in windows, and
And
that, gets frightening.
Yep.
Yes.
So I agree 100% with you. But to come up with,
I worked at a art center in Manhattan before I came here. And we had 4 big signs out front with banners, and we would let renters of the art center in between our own programs, put up banners for their art fairs and things like that. But we had a set of design guidelines that your text had to be in the lower third of the banner, that the graphic had to be in a certain way. And once we set that, it made it so much easier. Nobody had to be the design czar, looking at it every time. And it really, font size, we literally went and held up letters, and people went 2 blocks away and said, no, I can't read it. And we figured it out, and that's how you get
Do you
there.
still have access to that, Kirsten, those
do.
particular guidelines? Just because
great.
it would show us a template sort of what needs to be included in that?
Let me pull that and I'll send that around.
That'd be great.
banners of the ones you like versus the ones you hate.
Right.
Go on a trip.
And anytime anybody's somewhere, when they see a banner, take a picture of it, because
Right.
we can use that as a comparison. To us, this is not a good banner.
Right.
It's not communicating the
Right.
message. It's poorly done.
Visually,
Here's an example of one that's done. This is where we like to
Yeah.
model ours for future, all that
I
kind
think,
of
I
stuff.
think that's really important. I think it's a
So,
really
yeah.
good thing to
in terms of
consider.
like the POCD process, maintaining the quaint character of
Yes.
the
Yes, yeah.
downtown,
Yes.
historic
Yes.
nature. all
Yes.
this.
Yes.
Good.
I also think that when you have a lot of them, if they're consistent, they're all the same graphic, like it looks pretty, it becomes part of the design of a street. But if you I want these 2 signs, or I want that sign on that near my business, then it becomes hodgepodge. It has to be like, if you're gonna take Elm Street, you got to take all of Elm Street. If you're gonna take, Cherry, then you're gonna something like that. Like, you know what I mean?
Yes, I
Yep.
do.
Great comment.
All right, so you'll try to find that, and if anybody has anything else to add to that, send it forward, and then we'll put something together and maybe review it at our next meeting and talk to Doug and tell him.
Who pays for the banners?
Well, that's all to be determined.
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
right now,
okay.
we've got, possible underwriting to start it, but we could, as Dan's pointed out, we could monetize it,
Yep.
Right now, I know when Laura does for the chamber lights and the gift tags, and same with the Pink Project, people paid $125 to have their family member named as a beneficiary of the breast cancer awareness banner. or ribbon, and people buy lampposts for the holiday stroll as well. So it's a fundraiser for the chamber and for the breast cancer program. So I'm just gonna mute her because she seems to be talking. Anyway, all right. So more to come on that.
Yep.
Okay, that's something concrete we can move forward on. I love it. Hopefully you all are getting the first selectman newsletter. Encourage all your friends, Katie, because she is trying to make sure that she touches upon, we're doing it every month, and that anything that's going on. She's not promoting things, when I say she, I mean, the town can't put together a calendar saying Grace Farms is doing this and Mounted Troop is doing this, but certainly town-sponsored events, but it also leads people to the places where they'll need to get more information. A perfect example was today, I'm sure all your phones blew up around 1:30 or whatever
911.
about the 911. And because we have this robust database, we were able to email everybody and say, 911 is out. If you need to text it, 911, please text it. But also what we heard was that the police were telling us that a lot of people were trying it to see if it was working.
Oh, geez.
And then they were flooded. Everyone was like, oh, I wonder if it's still working. And they were hitting 911. And so there was all of that. So all the more reason to get these newsletters. But in the last newsletter, we reminded everybody that we did a parking survey.
Mhm.
And I've got the preliminary results. I really haven't spent any time sort of analyzing. They were 5 quick questions. We had 850 people respond over the period of time. And they were questions more about, where do you park? Do you pay? Do you use the app? How many days do you typically come into town? Why are you here mostly? Is it work? Is it dining? Is it shopping? Would you be in favor of more temporary 15-minute parking? There were 2 questions about outdoor dining in terms of how do you feel about outdoor dining? Do you mind that we lose some parking places because of it? The long and the short of it is, and as I say, I haven't really spent any time analyzing it other than Laura and I talked about it today. There wasn't really anything earth shattering other than people love the outdoor dining. Some people don't like the fact that we lose some parking, but they really do like the outdoor dining. There is a small appetite for some more 15-minute parking, but not a lot. Primarily, people were saying that when they come to town, they choose to go to Elm Street first. They look for parking on Elm Street first because it's free. And then if they can't find anything, they usually say that they'll go to the lot in the back. A couple people said they'll leave town if they can't find it on Elm Street. The reason this was so important was because Deanna has already, Deanna Carlson, our first selectman, has already publicly stated that she wants to make some changes. I've got an 800-page book on my desk that I'm about 30 pages into it's called the high cost of free parking, because Elm Street is free and we charge you to park in the other lot. So the survey.
Which should be the opposite, really.
It should be. That's
Yeah.
the whole point.
Yeah.
And that's her point. And so we figured we should do this survey to see how people felt about it. And I feel like we got a pretty good showing from everybody. But the parking commission will delve into this a little bit more going forward, but I did just want to bring it up that I think it's always a good idea to ask people what their opinions are.
Mhm.
And I don't think there were any great surprises, but I think it was also a good exercise for us. And you'll hear more from Deanna on that
Can I
going
ask a
forward.
question? You had names of people living in New Canaan, but names of people also living outside New
So
Canaan?
we sent it, Laura put it out there in her blast. So anybody that gets Laura's blast, which is a
Oh.
lot of people that work in
Okay,
business, right? They didn't have to be a resident.
Yeah.
We sent it to every list that we had available to us.
Okay.
Anybody that has a parking permit, anybody that signed up for the newsletters, Laura sent it out. You could refer it to a friend. We wanted to really get everybody's sort of ideas on what they felt about the parking, how they felt about the parking.
The
Okay.
first question was, are you a resident? Do you work here? Do you work in a restaurant? So to kind of qualify.
Yeah, the first question was choose the option that best applies to you. Resident, non-resident visitor, work at a retail store, work at a service, second story office, work at a restaurant. And so that.
I mean, I just was interested in where you got all the contact information because
Right.
again, I mean, banners are a great thing,
Yeah.
but I also don't always know what's going on in town.
Right.
And it would be great to get a text message. Oh, by the way, tomorrow night is this. Or, you know, I get emails from Race Farms,
all the
but I
time.
don't.
Because you've signed up for that.
But there's so many.
You have to opt in.
Yeah,
We-
but I
we
mean-
can't send it to you unless you opt in for it. And when you sign up for the town
Oh, oh.
newsletters, there's 6 buckets that you can choose from of what you want to know about.
Right.
And so you could be getting, I mean, the Tiger Man sends out a DPW update almost every day.
He does.
And some people are like, really, again? But you know what? If
No, I would like
Trying to
that.
get
if I
through
live on
town.
Locust and
Yeah.
Locust is
Where
being
is that?
paved,
On the
on
main, on the
website.
town website?
on the town website, sign up for alerts. And the one
good.
thing
Well, I get
legally-
alerts already, but I didn't know I could get all those
You
alerts.
can, so you could, there's 6 different buckets.
Okay.
Sure, that's great.
Yeah.
That's good.
Tell all your friends about that,
I was
Katie,
gonna
too.
say, I didn't actually know that myself, so.
There you go.
Right, it's
Sign up.
right on
It's
the
definitely
page
worth it.
and,
And I've been to the
On the homepage.
website a bunch of times concerning a number of different things, but I guess I
we're,
don't see.
we're really, there's a communications committee within Town Hall that meets every Monday at 11 o'clock. And we sort of run through everything that we need to communicate to the public and where we're going to put it on the website and how we communicate it out. Because there is a huge effort to make sure that we're communicating effectively with everybody and that at the very least, people should be able to find all the information that they need on the town website. But I would just putting a plug for the chamber calendar has also tries to keep track of all the events that are happening in town, and the newsletter that the chamber sends out every couple of weeks also is usually chock-a-block full of things that are happening. So, but we're going to put Katie on the under 35 group
Literally
to
the
sign
finance
up.
crew.
That
We've
leaves
got,
me out.
I think we've got, I know, I think over like 3,000, there's 8,000 households in New Canaan. Our goal internally here is to make sure that we have a viable email address for every single household in New Canaan. That's the ultimate goal, is because in an emergency, we want to be able to know that we can communicate with everybody, and we want to be able to text them, we want to be able to email them.
That's
we
what I
want-
was.
You want to be able to call them. You're allowed to use every means possible in a real emergency. You can do everything you need to do.
Well, didn't you guys, didn't we have that neighbor thing, which also mentioned how many dogs you might, if you had animals in case the fire department came, and wasn't there all that at one time?
That might have been something, I mean, this is only started since Deanna, the Everbridge system has been in place for a while,
Everbridge,
but the real push to get everybody signed up and all the different buckets has been something that's evolved over the last year.
I mean, when you were talking about Waveney and
Catherine
Cabot,
Covers.
I thought, you know, rather than having a Wild West kind of affair, have people sign up and thusly give you email, phone number, $5 to get in, okay, or $3 to get in, but at least it's somewhat organized and you limit.
That's what we did this year.
Oh, you did this?
Oh, yeah, that's exactly how it
I
happened.
guess I didn't know.
People had to register, well, not the people that came to the show.
No, that's what I mean,
But
the people that came to the show.
Well, the Caffeine and Carburetors has a huge database because they send it out to everybody and anybody who's ever wanted to know about the show.
Okay.
But the information that's been collected are the people that register their cars and
Okay.
pay. We're not allowed to charge an admission fee to enter a town park. You can't,
For an event?
no, you cannot.
No.
Especially because it's a for-profit organization. Caffeine and Carburetors, Doug's and Buck is a for-profit organization. The only time we're allowed to do it is for the 4th of July. We can close the park down and charge people. But if somebody walked up and said they just wanted to take a walk in the park and they're a resident of the town, you have to let them in.
Yeah.
Your taxes are paying for it.
I'll remember that.
You remember that. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Before we get to update from committee members, I just wanted to, we have an interesting thing, and thank you, Meg and Kirsten, and I think Nancy maybe, Bill Hilson, is that his name? Bill Hilson. Bill Hilson, who lives here in town, has got a group of Swedish political leaders that are coming here. Is it next week?
30th.
They want to do, they first started talking to Deanna and myself about, they wanted to bring them here to find out sort of how our political system works locally. So they're going to spend an hour with us, and then they said, well, what should we do while we're here? And so all our good friends and partners have set them up with these amazing tours and that kind of thing. So that'll be fun on the 30th. That's just our way of reaching out to the international crew. Also keep in mind in terms of events and banners, obviously 2026 is the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, which happens July 4th. It happens to be on a Saturday in 2026. So the family committee is going to really pull out all the stops in terms of what happens that day, but if anybody in all of your travels or what you read or what you see, if anybody comes up with anything, Deanna really feels strongly that we're actually talking about maybe doing a 4th of July parade that one year, which we've never done, which is kind of fun. I mean, the Memorial Day parade is amazing, but it is a Memorial Day parade. This would be throw the candy,
Yeah.
do floats,
Right.
the whole 9 yards.
Maybe,
So-
maybe a play about, the Constitution. and
So,
play-
I was talking to
Yeah.
the, Patricia from the Powerhouse Theater yesterday, and she said she just had a group approach her. It was a play about the signing of Declaration of Independence, all by women.
Great.
Kind of interesting,
Yeah.
right? Because it was all done by men in 1776. So all sorts of ideas, but we want to just have tons of things happening to sort of commemorate that. But having said that, all of the talent, if you will, around that is getting scooped up pretty fast. Ridgefield, they had the Battle of Ridgefield, so they've already got this whole thing about, they're doing a reenactment of the battle. So again, I'm just trying to sort of coordinate all ideas. So if you hear of anything that you think would be cool, I mean, everyone seems to like the parade idea, but we'll kind of see how that goes. So, and then lastly, before we go around the room, just to remind everybody, because Deanna and I talked about this a little bit this morning. So our group, we're very anxious to get things done. We're an advisory group. We don't have a budget. We sort of see everything that's going on. We're trying to look at everything from a holistic view and offer our 2 cents. However, I think a lot of good things since it started have come from TDAC, and I think we're on to a few other things. I just don't want anybody to get frustrated that we can't do a lot because of the fact that we don't have a budget, but there are funds to be had. If we come up with the right ideas, there are funds to be had and we can make them happen. So just let's keep coming up with these great ideas. Okay. And then maybe we'll start with Zoomland. Laura, you want to give us a quick update, chamber update?
Yeah, so couple things. When we look at the downtown, this shift from kind of transactional, traditional retail to really an experiential landscape continues to go along. We have a dance studio that's opening where Karen Forbes was on Main Street. We have
Fred
a
Astaire?
new, the Fred Astaire. We have a new dermatologist, a breast imaging place. Framebridge, which is a national company, is set to open. It could have opened this week, but I know they were aiming for the end of the month. We have 3 new restaurants. One of them's not built yet, taking existing retail space, turning them into restaurants. The White Buffalo has evolved into a live music venue, not without issues, but they're working through those. Obviously, we have the Playhouse. Polestar, I think, is almost open, which is Volvo's electric car division. We have a new yoga studio. And it just, there's just an overall shift. There's, med spas and, stretch labs and other, fitness places. So, it continues to change. And I think a lot of people get frustrated by that, but what I'm hearing is the demand is still strong. There's an empty retail space on Elm Street. Tucker and I talked to the property manager. The deal is not signed yet, but they immediately had 4 applications. So, I think it's going really well. And, all this work that was started, I think, Dan, when you were on the chamber board, when Tucker first started and you guys got lampposts in place, I think we have to really look at downtown as a canvas, right? The lampposts are booked all the time, different groups, from the gingerbread houses. We have the vigil that goes on in the pop-up park, the ergathon, art in the windows, not to mention all the chamber events. The lampposts with the scarecrows, the flags, the baskets that get hung every year by beautification. And I just think, we know about all those things, but when you really look at them all in total, It really shows how nimble the space has been. A lot of it speaks to the town that's open to these ideas. So, you know, I think that's really exciting, you know, and this evolution continues, and it started with little ideas that have certainly evolved.
Well, Laura, didn't you recently tell me that, so Laura lived in town for a long time and then has moved out into South Norwalk, but you were back with Scott the other night and Scott hadn't been here in a while and he was like, wow, things are like happening around here.
I know, and it's outdoor dining, much to a couple of the retailers' chagrin. Thank God it was extended through the end of October because that's been amazing. That will end on the 31st. The town continues to update infrastructure. I was touching base with Tiger today. You know, Morse Court was updated. They're about to put a fence around the garbage cans there. The bump out project will now continue in front of the Playhouse, and then next spring it'll go across the street to, you know, to widen the sidewalks into those no parking areas. And then the ramp that we've talked about a lot behind the Playhouse, the goal on that is March. And then those dumpsters are going to get moved. They're going to be kind of embedded into the hill between the Playhouse and the Park Street lot. So all of those little things, I mean, that's a major entrance into town. To get those dumpsters out of there is going to be great. The biggest project going on in town, and let's see if I can share my screen here. Okay,
Yeah.
share. Where am I gonna find this?
Then you have to pick it.
I know. I have the tab. It's on a different tab. Oh, that's frustrating. I don't know how to find it. It's
There's a project. Tell them a little bit about it.
yeah, so maybe if I can pull it up here.
I was gonna say, let's see if I can find it here.
Yeah, I don't know why. Once I go out of Zoom, I can't pull it up. So there is a project, 112 Main Street, which is kind of an eyesore. It's where Connecticut Muffin is. Right now, it's hosting the Dems and the Republican headquarters. It's an older building, and there is a group of developers who have been working their way through planning and zoning. And their goal is to retain the thank you, Nancy. I was looking that up too. It is to retain the retail space, but add 13 housing units, apartments, between 1 and 3 bedrooms. And obviously 2 of them will be affordable, so we don't, you know, set ourselves back in terms of the 830G. And it's a huge project because they have to allow for parking. And I think they're gonna, to my understanding, lift the building a little bit. So there's definitely some issues. I've had some of the retailers in the area come to me and ask to speak against it as a chamber, and I spoke to my board, and we agreed that we are in favor of the project, but we are definitely concerned with how the other businesses. This is a major, probably 2 or 3 year construction project. So I've submitted a letter to planning and zoning, you know, saying we endorse the project, but we are worried about lighting and signage and access and parking of all those construction vehicles. Let's see if I can. Yeah, I don't know why I can't.
I'm trying to find it too.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge upgrade.
I talked to the guy that's the new owners.
Yeah.
I mean, possible new owners.
Right.
You seem like nice guys. They want to keep the building in the style of the heritage that it has.
Right.
Yep.
And they seem very experienced in this type of project. So they're just hoping they get approval.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, the concern, as Laura pointed out, is there's a couple of merchant space. I mean, they share a wall. Like, I don't know how you separate buildings. I know this happens every city around, right? When you've got buildings, but
Right, side by
the
side.
person that's sharing the wall and they're, you know, how does that work? I don't know. So those are concerns, but yeah, they're talking about underground parking. it's a big project, but that building has been an eyesore for a while now.
It has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's right,
It's right in the middle of town.
it's right there. Yeah.
And you're building a lot of buildings going on behind it, right, too, right?
There's a couple of projects that have
On
been,
Bertha Street, right?
yes, but they're trying to sell that whole thing as a package. They've already been approved, so
Right.
now they're trying to sell it as an approved project.
Oh,
and
they're not
actually-
planning the-
Not actually do the work themselves,
Oh, they just went through the process.
which is kind of an interesting strategy, right? Design a project, take it through the whole approval process, and then say, okay, now we've got it, it's approved, you're good to go. How much is it worth to you? So they've got people who are nibbling on that.
But there'll be also construction trucks and
Oh, yeah.
disruption to that part of
Oh, yeah.
town too.
Yeah, yeah, it's not easy.
There's
Sorry,
nothing
Kirsten?
perfect.
And which building is this?
112 Main Street, right across
The
from.
one with the
oh,
white
All right,
stripes.
Laura's got it now. There we go.
No, but you
No.
wouldn't,
That's what it would look like.
right, now it's covered with the white stripes.
It's got the, yeah.
Right.
If you Google Kirsten 112 Main Street, you'll see how it sits today.
60s.
It is
So
very
they
60s.
did-
There's going to be some resistance to the fact that we're changing it, but this is what they think it will look like.
What did you say? I didn't hear that. But did they get approval for the one on the roof?
No, no, they're not, they haven't gotten approvals for this yet.
I thought they asked for an apartment on the roof too.
Well, they haven't gotten all their approvals
they
yet.
haven't got-
They're
oh.
asking for it, but they're still in the process of getting approvals. Yeah. It's quite a different look. I mean, I don't know if any of you have been down to Darien recently, and David Genovese, who we've had here, but
Yeah.
I mean, this is
He did a hell.
this is what he's doing, right? And there are 3 other projects happening in Darien right now.
Still has the historic nature.
Yeah,
He
does.
really did a good job.
he always joked with
Excellent.
us. He said he was trying to create another New Canaan.
Created his own hell.
Are you still there, Laura?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, good. So you managed to get it up there.
Yeah.
So that's the short version of what the big project that is on the table for planning and zoning. All right, anybody else? Kirsten, how are things? Glass House?
Things
World?
are great. Yeah. We have some programs coming up. We're working once again with STAR, Stand Together Against Racism, and the Carriage Barn Arts Center for the Through Your Looking Glass, the student art presentation. That'll happen November 16th to the 24th. And so this will be the 3rd year, I believe. Really excited for that. And November 18th, we have a program on the origin stories of the modernist movement in New Canaan at the library on the 18th. And this is our last public program of the season and of our 75th year. So the focus is on the 75 years ago, kind of 1949 era.
Right. Okay. How long have you been there now? When did you start?
Started, let's see, September.
right, so you're-
It was a year.
Okay. Wow. How time flies.
I know. We have a new we have a new director of development who's really wonderful and settling in for, been there 3 months. And I think that it's a great addition to the team. And we are hiring a new director of interpretation and education in an attempt to start thinking how to expand our education programs for younger audiences.
Great. Fantastic. Meg, last night, big night.
Yes, I'll just mostly say thank you to everyone who either came or spread the word. It was,
Amazing.
the performance was magical. I mean, they were really incredibly talented, and it was really the first time that we've had a performance of that acoustic nature in the Grace Farm space. So we did a lot of thinking about, even with one of our original architects, but how is this going to sound? How's this going to work? But there were 683 people. there.
Really?
One of the most moving parts, and they're really I think a lot from New Canaan, was I probably got into the space halfway through it was being filled, and just seeing the group of people winding their way up the river building, very quiet, very peaceful, but just all together to see this
nice.
communal experience. Very special. So we had a ton of, benefit community members and sponsors and community members who supported it. So it was really
Fantastic.
special.
What was exactly the music? I'm sorry, I wasn't.
Sorry, that's okay. It was the London Philharmonic
Oh.
Orchestra in the United States for an 11-stop tour. They did Carnegie Hall on Saturday evening.
That's
and
impressive. Came here.
Buchanan on Monday. So, and then, they also spent sort of to the theme we were talking about earlier, they were coming to Grace Farms as a way to finish their tour and have this
Right.
sort of retreat-like experience at the end of a very grueling travel tour.
Right.
So we made sure to really host them and set up an itinerary for them. They had tea, they did a tour. So it was just an example of how we can
Nice.
bring people to New Canaan and give them a great experience.
Where
So
did
anyway,
you put them all up?
So they stayed at the Watershed Hotel.
Mhm.
Sorry, that's not true. Some of them stayed at the Watershed, some of them stayed at this same brand, RMS Hotels Group has a new, pretty high-end hotel in Stamford. It's
Okay.
more of a boutique type hotel.
Okay.
We have a partnership with RMS Hotels, but it does sometimes involve putting people in different.
Right. Fantastic. All
Thank
right.
you. Thank you to everyone who supported it.
Nancy, you kind of already gave us your update. Do you have anything else that you want to add? And Nancy, if you're still with us? I think. you're
Yeah,
still with
I
us.
am still with you. I don't know why my camera doesn't work, but anyway, no, we don't have a lot to report. Our new building is gonna be dedicated in mid-December, and so then our Campus Reimagine project will be complete. So we're excited about that.
Huge. Absolutely huge. Yeah, really well
Big
done.
project.
But I
Uh,
posted a note because the 250th is important, obviously, to the Historical Society. And we
Yeah.
need to make sure that the focus is appropriate, that it is the Declaration of Independence and not the Constitution. And I was at a conference recently about this, and the misinformation around celebrating the Constitution is huge. And
Ah.
all of the Connecticut 250 is focused on the Declaration of Independence.
Okay. All right. That's important. Anybody else? Our next meeting is December 4th. I cannot believe we're talking December. But I think what I'd like to set our goal being that we'll get something out to everybody on this banner project because I will want to circle back with Doug and team on that. And then have more of a wrap up on December 4th, and then we'll figure out if you need any more help, Dan and Katie, and we'll go from there.
You got it?
Okay. Are we good?
We're
Eight,
excellent.
8:08, not too bad.
No.
Try to
that's-
keep it to an hour.
Good.
Thank you, everybody. See you soon.